There is one lie about money that almost every middle-class Indian grows up believing. It is repeated at home. It is reinforced by society, and it quietly shapes financial decisions for decades.
The dangerous part is that this lie sounds responsible.
It sounds safe, it sounds wise, but over time it does more damage to wealth than bad investments ever could. Today we're going to talk about that lie. Not emotionally, not politically, but calmly, honestly, and mathematically.
Because once you see it clearly, you can't unsee it.
The lie goes like this. Save first, spend carefully, avoid risk, and everything will be fine.
On the surface, this sounds like good advice. After all, saving is considered a virtue. Spending carefully is praised, and risk is treated as something dangerous. But this advice was designed for a very different India. An India where inflation was low.
Jobs were stable for life, and savings accounts actually protected purchasing power.
That India no longer exists. Yet the advice remains.
And that mismatch is where the problem begins.
The middle class is taught that saving money is the goal. From childhood, we hear phrases like,
save for a rainy day. Don't take unnecessary risks.
Fixed deposits are safe.
Markets are like gambling. So the middle class does exactly that. They save,
they avoid risk,
they park money in places that feel secure. And year after year, they feel like they're doing the right thing. But slowly, quietly, something else is happening. Their money is losing value, not suddenly,
not dramatically,
but steadily. Inflation eats away purchasing power every single year.
What feels safe is slowly becoming insufficient.
And this is the part no one explains clearly.
Saving money is not the same as growing money. In fact, in a high inflation environment, saving without growth is a guaranteed loss.
It just doesn't feel like one. The biggest lie is not don't invest. The biggest lie is this. If you save enough, you'll be financially secure. That statement used to be true. It is no longer true.
Let's look at a simple example. Imagine someone saves 1 crore rupees. To many middle-class families, that number feels like financial freedom. It feels like success. But 1 crore today does not buy what 1 crore bought 20 years ago, and it will buy far less 20 years from now.
If inflation averages 6%, money loses half its purchasing power roughly every 12 years.
That means 1 crore today feels like 50 lakh in the future.
And that is without making any mistakes. This is not mismanagement. This is mathematics. The middle class is told to focus on safety.
But safety without growth is an illusion.
Now let's talk about risk. Middle-class Indians are taught that risk is dangerous, that markets are unpredictable, that equity is for the rich, that debt is safer. So they avoid equity for years, sometimes for decades. When they finally enter markets, it's usually late, after prices have already risen,
after inflation has already done damage,
and often after fear has built up. This creates a tragic pattern.
The middle class takes the least risk when they can afford it,
and the most risk when they can't. Early in life, when time is abundant, they avoid equity. Later in life, when time is scarce, they feel pressure to catch up. And pressure leads to bad decisions. This is not because the middle class is careless. It's because the advice they followed was outdated.
Another version of this lie sounds like this.
Work hard.
Get a stable job.
Everything else will fall into place. Work ethic is important. Stability is valuable. But income alone does not build wealth. Savings alone do not build wealth. Wealth is built when money grows faster than inflation for long periods of time, and that requires ownership,
not just effort.
The middle class is excellent at earning, but poor at owning. They own fixed deposits. They own insurance products sold as investments. They own safe instruments, but they often delay owning productive assets. Assets that grow, assets that compound, assets that protect purchasing power. This is why many middle-class families feel stuck despite doing everything right. They studied,
they worked,
they saved,
they avoided trouble, and yet financial freedom feels just out of reach. Not because they failed,
but because the rules changed and no one updated the instruction manual. The truth is uncomfortable. Middle-class wealth is not destroyed by extravagance. It is destroyed by conservatism, by playing it too safe for too long, by confusing stability with security.
Real financial security does not come from avoiding risk. It comes from understanding it,
managing it, using time as a shield. Equity is volatile in the short term, but inflation is brutal in the long term. One feels scary,
the other feels invisible.
But only one guarantees loss if ignored. The middle class is taught to fear volatility, but they are rarely taught to fear erosion. And erosion is the real enemy. Now here's the part that matters most. This is not about blaming parents or teachers or society. They gave advice that worked in their time. But blindly following old advice in a new environment is dangerous. The solution is not recklessness. The solution is balance.
Saving is important,
but saving must be paired with growth. Stability is valuable, but stability must not come at the cost of stagnation. The middle class does not need to become aggressive investors.
They need to become long-term owners, owners of businesses,
owners of productivity, owners of growth. This shift is subtle, but powerful. Once you stop asking, "Is this safe?" and start asking, "Will this beat inflation over time?"
Your decisions change.
You stop fearing short-term noise. You start respecting long-term math.
And slowly the lie loses its grip. The biggest lie middle-class Indians are told about money is not malicious.
It is outdated, and outdated advice when followed for decades becomes expensive. The goal is not to reject discipline, the goal is to upgrade it. Because discipline without direction is just effort. But discipline combined with growth is how wealth is actually built. Quietly, gradually, over time. This is the wealth blueprint. And understanding this lie is the first step toward breaking free from it. Subscribe if you want clarity, not hype.